Yeah!
You know, world records are a pretty big deal. In 2024, over 2,700 competitions took place across the world. Within those same competitions, there were only 59 instances of a world record being broken. Some competitions had multiple world records broken within that same competition, such as Max Park's stellar 6x6 single and mean both happening at the 2024 edition of the Western Championship, meaning that in total, there's just under 50 unique competitions in which a world record was set. They're extremely hard to come by, and for good reason. If you want to get the world record, you have to beat every single time imaginable listed on the WCA results page. And if you're currently the world record holder, just like Max Park is, you also have to beat your own time. That's much harder than it looks, but Max Park makes it look really easy. Within that same year, he's broken 9 world records, including a continental record as well. World records are really synonymous with this guy. Although, if I were to ask him, I think world records are really special to him. Getting a world record is definitely a special feeling. Imagine, you beat everyone that's ever competed in an event, and you're the first person to ever post a time like this officially. That's an otherworldly achievement. Max Park is one of the most prolific ones. Felix Zemdegs, Eric Ackersteig, Stanley Chaplin, also really prominent world record holders. All of them having at least 25 instances in which they beat every single person, including themselves if they had to, and they became on top of the world. Felix tops this list with the most world records ever set, at 121, with Max trailing close behind at 86. They know what it's like to have worldwide success. But this also applies on the other side too. Colin Burns, Lucas Eddard, Seongbum Cho, they have far less world records. Some of them only even have one to their name, but that single one meant the whole world to them. You know what they all have in common? All of them have uploads of their historic record-breaking achievement on YouTube for thousands, even millions to see. Look at how happy Eric is dropping the world record by over a second and a half. And see how many people walk up to congratulate him? Eric is far from the first to have people generate hype over this, but all these other record holders share similar traits as to what happens after a world record. Colin Burns 525, world record. Everyone goes insane. One person is going genuinely insane over it. Lucas's 490, the very first sub 5 ever. Everyone goes insane. One person goes genuinely insane over it. I have never in my 6 years of speed cubing have ever once been hugged from behind by a judge before. Here's Sungbum Cho with his 459. Once again, everyone's gonna go insane over it. You know what most of these records have in common? Everyone's gonna go insane over it. Amidst those chaos, there are also some very iconic moments. Most will quickly spot the guy who missed a high five. That's very humorous. But not enough people are pointing out my personal favorite with this guy throwing an expletive out of nowhere. It's quite funny. Of course, I can't forget Felix's massive string of records, such as when he ties that 459 later on. More wholesome. I like that. Another high five rejection. I really like that. Of course, if you do like the chaos, you can refer to his 473 record, where he beats out Max Bulk by 100th of a second, and I know some of you might be saying, well, that's what normally happens when you get a world record, right? Well, there's this moment from Felix where the iconic moment literally happens before the solve is even done.
Come on, get a sub 5.
And then that guy who called it gets a sub 5 of his own. And then if you just straight up dislike the chaos, you don't even need to have it at all. You can just be one impressed judge as Max Park solves his way to another 4x4 average world record, and the people in the comments will be like, yep, that's me right there. This is what I love about world records. Of course the solve is on another level, don't get me wrong, but I'm personally more fond of the reactions that follow, and as proven of the comments, there's a lot of iconic moments to come around. The crowd rush, the reactions, all the missed high fives. Most of these records have them all, but it's what makes these records all the more special. I love them. I was even honored to be in a fair share of them as I was competing myself. Look at me, I'm right there. However, these special moments were nearly taken away from us. Yes, Max Park did set multiple world records on that day. And yes, I was there in the crowd for his 4x4 average. Later on, he'd go on to break the 3x3 average, but that almost never happened. 5 seconds before that solve, Max Park needed about a 4.83 to tie the then 3x3 average record, 5.09, held by Timon Kolisinski. Less than that to essentially beat it, and as you just saw, that did, in fact, happen. But that's not the problem we're looking at here. The reaction follows, everyone is super excited. It's a big deal. There I am, basically shoving my phone on the timer. Everyone high-fiving. I miss mine. This is the egregious part. What became jubilation turned very quickly into a nightmare. People noticed the timer was off, and once it was powered back on, the timer suddenly displayed full zeros. It wasn't a big deal. I'm sure by now the judge wrote down the time, Max Park signed off of it, and we're good, right? You did write down the time and sign it, right? WCA regulations explicitly require that a competitor must sign off on the time to validate it, verify it's correct, and that the result will be certified. Amidst all that celebration, that procedure never happened. This result doesn't count. It never happened. I'm going to use this over-inspected episode as this is the best documentation of the incident. I'll try my best to describe it to you. The specifics of this story are really lengthy and really complicated. It's probably a story for another time, but according to Michael Chai, who organized and delegated this competition, he explains that a member of the audience who was celebrating alongside the crowd leaned onto the wire connecting the time to the display and inadvertently disconnected it. When attempts were made to reconnect the timer, zero showed up and the time was gone. Could Max have gotten the provisional extra?
Think about what happens if you use a provisional extra. Like, actually think about it. You could tie the world record, you could beat the world record, or you could get worse than the world record because it was on the fifth solve and because the original time was extremely close to what the world record could have been.
The situation to make that occur is extremely complicated. Even so, would Max really want to gamble that away? That time that he just set, risking it to do it all over again, and what if it just never happens? Thankfully, after some deliberation and a very long process, no extra was needed, and the result stood. Max Park did indeed complete his average with a 4.8, and he gets the world record average with 5.08. That was indeed quite worrisome to see that a world record, the 3x3 average at that, was very nearly never written into the record books at all. It led to some deep thoughts. What's the future of the world record reaction?
I think those world record reactions might be gone in the future. I think it might be.
It's kind of sad.
Well, this is what the world record reaction is like now. Gone are the days where people gathered around, celebrated alongside the competitor. All that, it's gone. Priority now lies with protecting the time until it's written and signed, and even then, the time is still guarded from any incoming crowd rush. The contrast between Zane's reaction and the person guarding the time, it's as if Zane was told his cube was no longer comp legal or something horrifying like that. Of course, we can go back to Max Park. Max Park being Max Park, a year after that 3x3 average mishap, he'd accomplished something far greater, dropping the 3x3 single time after nearly 5 years. It's a super big deal. But once again, the organizers and delegates, they naturally learned from the mistake and are just playing lockdown defense with the time now. One person who strayed too close to the timer just gets absolutely stiff-armed. Like, oh man, that's quite unfortunate. I would rather just miss a high five from Max Park instead. That's the state of world record reactions right now. I can't be mad. I mean, the change was necessary. It's important to have those times certified at the end of the day. Perfectly reasonable. I'll respect it. But I don't think I'll accept it. World record reactions can't just die like this. People's fates on the internet shouldn't be decided by a stiff arm. Not on my watch. A month after Max Park's historic 3.13 single, I'll get the chance to rewrite history. Western Championships 2023. I'll spare you the details. Max Park will inevitably dominate and sweep the entire 3-7 series, and one-handed. Max Park will continue to be the king of the West, ever since these regional championships were first established in 2018. No shred of doubt about it. Given that it's Max Park, I'm sure it's inevitable that he'll more than likely set a world record here. When Max Park is in a championship setting, he is almost always associated with a world record, particularly in big cubes. Look at 6x6, where from 2022 to 2024, every world record he set on that event happened in a championship competition, including the 2023 World Championships, which he'll go to and win a month after Westerns. He is going to get that world record. There is no doubt about it. When Max Park opens with a 34 followed by a 33 in 5x5 finals, it's an extremely big deal. He's already halfway to demolishing the previous 5x5 average record, which was, of course, held by Max Park. The 33 in particular is just as impressive. It's not a world record, but it's still better than everyone else in the world at that time. Everyone except for, of course, Max Park. It's not a world record, but it alerts the organizers all the same, who immediately notice a crowd rush forming. Despite nobody even coming close to the timer, there's at least half a dozen staff members already trying to push people away. There's me in the background. You'll probably guess that I've just said that remark as a reaction to Max's incredible solve. Deep down, I am very shocked by how much security is taking place over this. Look at the person repeatedly asking people to move. He sweeps the entirety of the camera's line of sight, basically shifting the crowd an entire 5 feet in the opposite direction. If I'm gonna get my time in the limelight, I cannot be hanging around back there. They're yelling at everyone, guarding the time like it's the president. I have a plan. Organizers push people from right to left, but notice how they don't start from the far right of the camera. There are miraculously not a lot of people hanging around back there. Instantly, I will seize on this opportunity. As Max records unsuspecting times of 38 seconds, 40 seconds, I start heading over to the right as I prepare to witness another world record. Max had already locked the win so long ago in this event, a 37.8 or better on this final solve will bring a world record along with it. It's a bit tough considering his averages in the past, but it's very much possible. More possible than not. He's been on a tear this round and the organizers know it. As Max Park enters the last layer at 32 seconds, they know he has the world record on lock. They're already preparing to advance, to guard the world record with their life, and ensure that nobody shares even a piece of that glory. This is it. The future of the world record reaction rests on everything that occurs right after this solve. I cannot mess this up. Dust settles.
Nice work, Max Park. Nice work.
I've done it. The organizers tried everything they possibly could. They brought out dozens of staff members. They shoved people away from the light, making sure nothing gets by them. But I was immovable. As much as people tried and tried to prevent any iconic moments from happening, they stood no chance against one's sheer determination. Max Park did end up winning that day, but in a way, I felt like I shared a piece of that victory too. Despite the grim prediction from Overinspected all those years ago about how the world record reaction might no longer be a thing, thankfully they were mostly wrong about that. Times are still relatively protected today, but they're not as intense as they used to be, saving the art of the post-record reaction. I'd be remiss if I didn't end off the video by telling you guys about a more recent encounter I had with the Spotlight though. Shortly after the heroics of Western Championships 2023, a then lesser known event, Clock, began to rise to prominence. Having been overlooked for most of its history, it wasn't until a newly developed method, 7 Simul, which was invented in 2021, became more understood and popularized. Even more so once Tommy Cherry dropped a tutorial on it at the beginning of 2023. Combined with new regulations allowing pin presses on the clock starting in 2024, Clock rapidly became the new hot event on the block. After being dormant since 2019 after Evan Liu's near decade of dominance in the event, the North American record rapidly began being broken again. Among the world stage, Tommy, along with others such as Nicolas Eliasson and Eric Kasparek, used 7 Simul to their advantage and revolutionized the movement further. But as of recent, it has been a dogfight between Vladimir Kapustiansky, Brendan Dunnigan, and Lachlan Gibson. Brendan in particular is quite intriguing. After Vladimir took the record away from Niklas, Brendan would make history by getting the very first sub-2 clock single ever in competition. And, as it is nowadays, we're back to good old charm the reactions again. With, of course, the occasional reminder to sign the scorecard. In addition, he'd have his own string of individual success stories, with a North American record-winning clock average in the 2024 North American Championships, as well as another North American record average as UC Santa Barbara hosted its first ever competition. There I am again, seeing history being made, as history has already been made at my college. That's not exactly the moment that I'm talking about here. Until Vladimir changed nationalities to the US, Brendan was the king of North America in clock, looking to take it even further down. And what better way to do so than at Agora Side Events Day 2025. It was a relatively tough comp for Brendan though. Despite winning everything but Pyraminx, up until clock finals, it was really glum for him in terms of any personal records. I was just about to pack things up and head out until, as Brendan tends to do in these Agora comps, break the then North American single record by securing a 1.9 flat on his very last solve. You know, I did say that world records were pretty hard to come by, and indeed they are. But I think at the end of it all, the valuable lesson to be learned here is that you just have to be in the right place at the right time.
No way.